Hello everyone, we are Group 2 and we are going to present upon sustainable practices in the aquaculture industry. So what is aquaculture? The culturing or farming of aquatic plants and animals for any of their life stages is known as aquaculture. The history behind it is equally rich. This came up during 2500 BC in China with the emergence of the goldfish. The Japanese cultivated seaweed by providing bamboo poles, nets and oyster shells. During the 18th and 19th century, various new techniques started coming up to farm the aquatic plants and animals, such as external fertilization and artificial hatcheries. And thus now, in today's world, we see an increase in demand and overexploitation of regular marine species, which has led to domestication of other marine species in the 21st century. So why is there a need of sustainability in this industry? As we have seen, the commercialization of aquaculture is on rise and has brought about intensified methods of production, such as pond creation for marine shrimp, which has led to the destruction of thousands of acres of mangroves and coastal wetlands. Nutrient pollution at salmon farms, which has caused increased growth of harmful species such as algal blooms, which is a cause for reduction in the biodiversity. Also, there is an increase in the number of tuna ranches, which is hinting at the extinction of the species. So now we will be talking about some of the practices that we see around the globe that are sustainable in nature. Happy Shrimp Farm. This was started in 2004 with the help of Bass & Gill and the Port of Rotterdam in Netherlands. It's a fine example of multi-tropic aquaculture. It constituted of two phases. The first phase took the approach of co-siting. They built the farm near a power plant, thus utilizing the waste heat that is emitted through these power plants. It fosters about 2 million Pacific whites at a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius. These shrimps eat more algae than any other kinds of shrimps. And thus came the phase 2 of the project. As a back-end project, algae production system began. These algae keep the water clean and produce oxygen and consume CO2 in the process, thus providing fresh shrimps which have a very high demand in the Netherlands fish market. These shrimps can be differentiated on the terms of freshness, environment, social responsibility and food safety, and thus have a wide demand in Netherlands. The next company that we are going to talk about is an Australia-based salmon farming company called Tussle. Tussle is committed to sustainable practices across its business and since 2012 has released 4 sustainability reports. It has closely worked with WWF Australia to achieve the highest global standard of responsibly producing seafood. Tussle is the first company to become Aquaculture Stewardship Council, Salmon Standard and the Best Aquaculture Practices certified. They are very transparent in nature and they publicly report on their website which regions they have interacted in the past 30 days. They aim to provide the best possible living conditions for the fish and have appropriately trained their staff for the same. They heavily invest in the fish health initiatives that improve the fish performance and the growth as well. Train their staff for the same. They heavily invest in the fish health initiatives that improve the fish performance and the growth as well. Train their staff for the same. They heavily invest in the fish health initiatives that improve the fish performance and the growth as well. Train their staff for the same.
Next, I would like to give the example of Avanti Feeds. It is a pioneer for almost 2 decades in prawn culture and export of state-of-the-art prawns and fish feed. Moreover, it's India's third company to have earned the 4-star Best Aquaculture Practices certification. The sustainability practices that it follows are: it uses international quality raw materials and it provides ideal water stability and maintains eco-friendly water quality. Avanti has an in-house laboratory to conduct special tests to detect the presence of microorganisms and antibiotics to ensure that the end product, which is the shrimps and prawn feeds, are absolutely contamination free. The company also imparts technical knowledge to the farmers and assists the farmers with information and knowledge of global standard aquaculture practices, and also is updating developments in culture methods and processes. Further, it is into generation and sale of electricity. The company operates 4 windmills with a capacity of 3.2 MW at Chitraguda, Karnataka. Now moving on to another example, Marine Harvest. It is one of the largest seafood companies in the world and the world's largest producer of Atlantic salmon. The key to sustainability is transparency, and Marine Harvest continually engages with key stakeholders to ensure the constant improvement of regulations and environmentally and socially responsible practices. So included in the agreement between the Marine Harvest Group and WWF Norway in the year 2009 to 2014, there were commitments, ambitions, activities and key performance indicators regarding the potential environmental impact from genetic interaction between escape farmed salmon and wild Atlantic salmon, discharge from freshwater and seawater farming, potential impacts on wild salmon from diseases and sea lice on farmed salmon, sourcing of marine and vegetable raw materials for salmon feed.
Now I would be speaking about Blue Ridge Aquaculture. So Blue Ridge Aquaculture was initially an indoor recirculating aquaculture facility in Virginia known as Blue Ridge Fisheries, which produced and processed catfish. This business was later not successful in overcoming the flaws in the design of the recirculating system and eventually ceased operation. Blue Ridge Aquaculture, which was the result of some key personnel at Blue Ridge, produced Ras tilapia at the headquarters in Virginia. It initially produced around 1 million pounds of tilapia in a year, and it produced the largest indoor tilapia was shipped to different places. Around 75,000 live tilapia was shipped from Virginia. For such a mass production, Blue Ridge used the the techniques which I would explain later, which set the benchmark in sustainability practices in aquaculture industry. So, recirculating aquaculture was one of the practices. The recirculating aquaculture was operated by filtering water from the fish tanks, so it can be reused within the tank. This dramatically reduces the amount of water and space required to intensively produce seafood products. The steps in RAS include solid removal, ammonia removal, CO2 removal, and oxygenation. Blue Ridge Aquaculture utilizes eco-friendly indoor recirculating aquaculture facilities. The company's filtration system operates continuously, having the benefits which are mentioned as keeps the water clean and provides the healthy environment for the fish. The recirculating system allows Blue Ridge to recycle the water back to the tanks, unlike outdoor pond operation which are criticized by environmentalists because of the excessive water use and pollution associated with it. So this recirculating aquaculture is mainly a 4-step process. The first is the grow out tank, in which there are large culture tanks where fish are raised. So after this, the recirculated water is processed to remove the solids. Solids such as fecal material and uneaten feeds are removed by mechanical filtration. Post this, biofiltration is done to remove the ammonia. So this beneficial bacteria consume ammonia, which converted into nitrogen is released harmlessly into the atmosphere. And the last step is the dissolved gas control, that is oxygenation. This is the final step and the most crucial step for the fish is to reoxygenate the culture water as it returns to the grow out tank. Pure oxygen is injected to the returning water. Carbon dioxide is also removed in this process. And after this water is recirculated back into the tank. Thus, there is a saving of water. Now, I would be also telling about aquaponics. So, aquaponics is the symbiotic cultivation of plants and aquatic animals in recirculating environment, and is a food production system based upon Mother's nature of recycling fish waste by feeding it to plants. The sustainability of this method is achieved by nitrifying bacteria which are present everywhere in our environment. Once this bacteria starts receiving ammonia-rich tank water on a regular basis, they multiply and start converting ammonia into nitrite and nitrate. In a fully balanced system, the grow bed bacteria produce tremendous quantities of nitrate. This allows plants to grow and will keep your fish water clean. Once the above condition is reached, the system is said to be matured and keeps itself balanced with a very little maintenance required. Aquaponics advantage is that it requires very low maintenance, very high density food production. It can be scaled to work in areas as small as apartment balconies to large commercial production facilities. Produces plant as well as animal protein. Allows for very high fish stocking densities. Now, combination of RAS and aquaponics is a highly recycled system which do not require much additional application of feed, and stocking densities are generally high than those in extensive and semi-intensive systems. The vegetation uses the fish waste as a resource of nutrients. The clean water is then returned to the fish tank.
Now coming to the global standards, a universal mark is the global GAP, which is good aquaculture practice. This essentially encourages production and marketing of safe foods while protecting scarce resources. It covers the entire production chain from broodstock and seedlings to farming and harvesting and feed. The global GAP aquaculture standard sets strict criteria for the following: legal compliance, food safety, workers' occupational health, safety and welfare, animal welfare, environmental and ecological care. The standard covers the entire production chain from feed to fork. Coming to the compound feed, it essentially the aquaculture producers are required to source the compound feed used at the aquatic farming and hatchery levels from reliable suppliers. And the chain of custody, the global GAP chain of custody standard gives aquaculture producers a high level of transparency and integrity by identifying the status of your product throughout the entire production and supply chain from farm to retailer. In context, there is an increasing demand for aquatic resources, which has caused inland fisheries to decrease over the past few decades. There is a threat to the long-term sustainability of fisheries and aquaculture industries because of the overexploitation of important fish stocks, depletion in biodiversity, and international fish trade controversies. The strategies for sustainability have been highlighted with respect to rural aquaculture, intensification of small farms, wastewater-fed aquaculture, environmental regulations and fisheries acts, and transboundary aquatic ecosystems. The suggested model outlines the feedback mechanisms for achieving long-term sustainability through improved farm management practices, integrated farming, use of selective aquachemicals and probiotics, conservation of natural resources, regulatory mechanism and policy instruments. However, much is still desired to be done in the Indian context, and it is an urgent requirement that the Indian standards at least reach at par with global standards. Thank you.